And we are back. What's going on, y'all? What a finale. What a finale. I think when you think about it, we'll talk about it throughout tonight's live stream, the ups and downs of this season, the pros, the cons, the highs, the lows. But when you think about how it was set up, this is a deeper conversation that we'll have later on about the build up, the slow build, the tension being rise, the little innuendos, the little, I won't say Easter eggs, but the setup. I think it all paid off. Now, not every character had a satisfying conclusion that I thought they were going to have that we'll talk about. But for the most part, man, when it mattered, I think the show got me emotionally. I did not think I was in. If you guys appreciate all y'all that's coming over from the watch party that we had into this live stream, I fell for a certain death. We'll talk about what death that is. Another death I didn't really care for. And yeah, but overall, I think how are we feeling, y'all? I'm feeling pretty satisfied. I know some of y'all are probably like, this season sucked. This finale sucked. To each their own. But I think when you think about the spirituality, the Buddhism, tsunami, and think about all the symbolism in the season, I think it all kind of ties together. And we'll break that down in tonight's discussion. But here we are. Now, how are we going to do this? So normally what I like to do, and again, we got 480 people, 82 is going up. Appreciate y'all joining me live. What we're going to do tonight is talk about the episode. I'm going to have a proper breakdown that I'm going to probably write down, put it up, make some notes, rewatch the episode tonight, put out a proper video tomorrow. But tonight we're just going to kind of talk about the standout moments, talk about the season, talk about the characters, talk about the symbolism. We're going to play a little game. I have a little tier lists that I have set up. We can rank some of the characters towards the middle of the end. If you guys want to do that, we'll talk about some of our favorite characters that maybe didn't matter like I thought they were. But it's going to be a fun discussion. Everything's on the table. Obviously, be respectful in the comments. Again, I know not everyone liked this season, and we'll talk about that at some point in the breakdown. But let's have fun, man. This is the end. It's be another 2 years probably before we get another season. If we kind of go by 2021, 2023, and then 2025, so 2027 probably will be the next time we'll be in the White Lotus. So let's have some fun tonight. Let's celebrate and also mourn a particular character. One character that I cared about, other one not so much. But we'll get into all that. But before we do, again, thank you. We got 551 watching live. Hit that like button, y'all. It's free. It's literally free. Hit the like button. Also share the video, man. If you know someone else that loves talking about this show and wants to have a conversation about it, definitely share this stream with them, because it's going to be open discussion. And if you're new to the channel, you don't have to, but consider subscribing. We talk about the White Lotus. We talk about Severance. We talk about Invincible. We got a lot of movies coming out this week that I'll be seeing drop. I'll be seeing Warfare and a couple other things later this week. So consider subscribing. Check out the channel. If you like what you see, stick around. I would appreciate it. And also, in the description of this video, I have a podcast that's going to be more stuff's coming on there, but definitely check that out. That's also free. You can check me out on Apple and Spotify and all that good stuff. And we're going to have fun, y'all. So with all that being said, where do we begin? How do we feel? How do we feel right now after the finale? As Anna says, everyone needing therapy now. Let's have a therapy session. How do we feel about just our natural gut reaction of this finale? Satisfied, displeased, kind of in the middle, still kind of gathering our emotions. Like, where do we feel? Let me know in the comments on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, I'm feeling good about it. I'm satisfied. I'm a happy White Lotus fan. 5 being like, I'm kind of in the middle. And then obviously 1 or 0 being, I hated it. It was trash. Never again. Let me know in the comments, 1 to 10. For me, I'm at like an 8 right now. And as we'll talk about the episode, that might go up, that might go down, but I'm like at a solid 8. And the reason I'm at an 8 is because, again, I'm thinking about the big picture. I'm thinking about from when we first met these characters, where they were, their story, their character beats, their arcs, to where we end the character. Now, not all of them, right? We'll talk about that. Not all of them got an arc. Like, I feel like the friend group, that conclusion was a little lackluster for me. But I think about Chelsea. She's obviously RIP. Chelsea's really standing out to me because I like the moment and what it stood for. And just the idea of it was in our face the whole time, with the whole idea of bad things come in threes. Rick was literally if you think about it, he not only killed his dad, we'll talk about Jim, he killed his dad, but he also killed the love of his life, essentially. And there's a line in this episode that she says, "Don't think about the love that you didn't have, think about the love that you do have." And he essentially killed his dad, the love that he never got. And then he killed the person that was giving him love. So it's kind of like a tragic, and then of course he died. Um, a tragic situation. And there's almost like this cycle of, oh man, we're going to talk about it. But that's the thing that's really standing out to me is the symbolism behind Rick's death and just the idea of how that old adage of like you're your own worst enemy, right? He's been suppressing that energy, that negative energy, so many years, and he had the moment to confront the demons, and he did, and it bit him in the ass like a snake. Going back to that episode, she was bit by the snake, but that's really standing out at the top of mind. I'm a sucker for good payoffs, and I'm thinking about Belinda right now. Belinda and Zion, that scene was fire. I love that scene, so I love that. The Lachlan stuff, I'm still kind of torn on because I almost felt like it was I don't say a cop out, but like I'm still thinking about that. That definitely has some more symbolism behind it as far as how he was able to not, he kind of almost died and was resurrected in a sense and came back to fulfill whatever life is in front of him. We'll talk about that, but yeah, like I said, I'm not an 8, but was keeping it from a 10, like a great finale. Is the friend group stuff really didn't work for me at the end of the day. I feel like that just dragged on and didn't really have a payoff. I mean, they all came together, but that just felt like a kind of a not satisfying. I won't say it was bad; it just wasn't satisfying for me. The Greg stuff. So like he's good, clean slate, not no payback for Tanya, I guess, and Chloe. They got their little 3-way going. That feels a little. I mean, the money was cool, but that feels like a little empty. And of course, maybe he'll be back for season 4, Greg, potentially, or maybe they just let him go. Just rise off in the sunset with Tanya's money. I'm trying to think anything else. I'm sitting here thinking, let's just dive into it. Let's just go ahead and get into the episode. Let me share the screen with you all. And again, like, share, comment, do all the good stuff. Let's take it from the top. Let's actually take it from the top. I got the intro here of the season. Let's see if there is something, and I might actually do like a separate video with this. Just thinking about the symbolism of the trailer. Let me see here. Let me see if there's anything. I mean, Kate's character, Carrie Coon. I might have to do let me actually take this down so it doesn't get pulled from copyright reasons. Let me go to the characters that really stand out to me with this intro and see if there's anything. Because I'm thinking about the one thing that's coming to my mind right now is like Scott, for example. Is there a symbolism behind Scott Glenn's character? Like, what would he represent in this picture? We have is that a tiger and or a leopard with a bunch of like deer? Like, is he the leopard? Is he the deer? Which one is he? We don't have to go that deep. Well, I might have to do a separate video with that to kind of break down the symbolism in the opening credits. So there's definitely a lot to kind of break down there with a lot. Like, I'm even looking at, let me see. For example, this is a perfect example here, and then we'll get into the actual episode. But thinking about this imagery, Jason Isaacs' character with Timothy, it looks like there's a guy. Let me see if I can zoom in. Like, he looks like he's surrounded by, he's in the tree. I think that's the suicide tree. And I think that kind of, foreshadowed his whole setup of being, where he ended up being. So there's some stuff there to kind of consider. I wonder where Chelsea, let me see if I can find her thing and see if there's any symbolism or anything that gave us a clue to her demise. Let me see. Parker Posey. They got someone smoking. Oh, they got Rockwell with the crocodile. Natasha with the dove. Schwarzenegger with the women. And I'm trying to see if let's see. So Aimee Lou's name in the opening credits. And drop your comments too in the comments below, guys. Let me know what you all, now that we know how to end it. Rewind it here. Oh, let me take this off so it doesn't get flagged. I think Aimee Lou's character was by. Come on. Oh, did I miss it? Hold on. Let me go back and then we'll break down the episode. Let me just see. All right. Let me share the screen with y'all. Let me know what you all think about the opening credits and what it could. Let's see. I'm trying to. I don't know what kind of animals those are. For any of my animals friends out there, are those foxes, cheetahs? I don't know what's native to Thailand, but there's a wounded animal and a bunch of other animals are running towards the one animal. And again, this might not have any symbolizing deeper meanings to it, but I do find it interesting that Aimee Lou Wood, who plays Chelsea, is her name's on the screen where appears to be a a wounded animal. Was that maybe that was one of the deers that we saw from the previous scene, and she's, I don't know, there might not be much to that, but I think there is something there. But let's go to the episode. But before we do, I think we got a super chat. Let me see. My man Paul. Let me pull it up here. Let's face it. Did we really care about Tanya? Question mark. She was a rich brat. Greg, Belinda, and Zion were the working class getting over the wealthy. Yeah. I mean, look, if you guys follow my breakdown since season 1, I wasn't like immediately a Tanya fan. It took me a while to kind of get into the Tanya of it all to season 2, really. But there's some interesting things you're saying there, Paul, about the working class kind of getting there. I mean, of course, someone had to die for that to happen. They're all taking money off of someone that died. But there is something to say, like, I don't know, I just don't feel comfortable saying that, oh, good old Greg got it. But I understand what you're saying, though. But the Zion and the Belinda of it all, like, I'm glad that they got the money. But at what cost, right? And that goes back to just like the whole idea of this season of like materialistic things and how materialistic things can kind of consume you and corrupt your morals and your moral compass. And taking that money is that essentially, because we'll talk about in this breakdown, it was almost like a repeat of the cycle, right? We saw Belinda got the money. She's now off living her life, but Punk Shy's there and almost was like her in season 1, right? With Tanya getting distracted by Greg, and now Belinda's getting distracted by Tanya's money given to her from Greg, and now Punk Shy is kind of there, left on his own, and she kind of lives his life with his money. That's kind of, it's an icky feeling. It's an icky feeling. It's the blood money, as she said in this episode. So it will be interesting to see, again, knowing that Greg and Tanya, or Greg, Belinda, and Zion made it out of this season. Is there more to that story? Do you want to see more of that story? But I appreciate, number one, appreciate the super chat, but definitely some thoughts there. Let me know how y'all feel about that as far as the idea of the working class, Greg, Belinda, Zion getting the money from the wealthy, as Paul said, the brat. If there's any like sense of, well, good guys ended up on top. Interesting. Let me know how you feel about it. But let's see. Let me go to the actual episode and we'll kind of go some of the standout moments. Let's see. We open the episode with all the. I'm gonna have to re-listen to the commentary by the monk, but it definitely seems to me that it was very crucial to the overall kind of theme and thesis of this episode. There we go. With these anxieties, waking up with anxieties, we have someone like Piper, no, waking up with the anxiety of telling her parents what she tells them later in the episode about just not feeling like she's fulfilling something that she wanted to continue with, which is obviously going and living in Thailand, learning Buddhism, freeing herself from detaching herself from the materialistic lifestyle she had. And then ultimately feeling like she just isn't cut from that cloth. She isn't meant for that life. It's hard to detach yourself from those materialistic things. And I don't blame her, honestly. It's not a lifestyle meant for everyone, but we'll get to Piper a little bit later. But I think I'm gonna have to go back and watch this episode from and looking at it from a perspective of Locke, because I really thought that the show was gonna kill him. I mean, I'm not saying they kind of cowered out, and we'll get to that scene, but it's just like what lessons were learned, right, from Timothy and the Ratliff family. And I'm still, I guess, from a scientific level of like he drank that whole thing. Like, how was he able to come back? So I don't know. There might be something to be said about this opening credit when I rewatch it, as far as what the monk was saying and how it might tie into his fate and how he was able to have a second chance at life. Um, that was interesting. That was interesting. Yeah, we cutting through here, and the characters getting through, set up, guy talk, and the resolution with the girl group really kind of left me a little sour. I don't feel like it was much there with the girl group, but who I said it when we did the watch party, and I really hope this comes to be true. I would not be mad at Mike White if he brings back this SOB on the screen now. That's Frank. I would very much enjoy a night of shenanigans or a season of shenanigans with the great Sam Rockwell, who you know took over the internet a couple weeks ago with his incredible monologue. Hold on, let me see. We got a couple super chats. Karmas, Luna. Okay. Got some karmas. Shout out to Nisi. And Margie says, just so happy that Lachlan's okay. Felt bad for Chelsea, though. Will Panchai be back? Great season. We'll get into that. I mean, again, if we're going off of the logic I was talking about, we're repeating the cycle. Yeah, I mean, we would have to go back to Thailand, I guess, unless if he goes on his own vacation, goes to another White Lotus and tries to, like, I don't know, remove himself from that situation. But very interesting, very interesting. We'll definitely, I'll keep that in mind when we talk about Punk Chai and maybe what to come in a future season. But thank you so much again for the super chats, guys. I really appreciate it. But again, going back to the man on the screen, I'm glad Frank was okay. I'm glad Frank survived, because I mean, he doesn't have to be the main character, but I would like for him to be like almost a Tanya-esque type of character where we might see him again in the future, potentially. I highly doubt it, though. I mean, he's a very accomplished, busy actor, high in demand. So I don't know if he'll want to come back to that. But I will say this, and shout out to Walton Goggins, great actor. Is Rick a POS? Is Rick a POS? And of course, I'm referring to what happens a little bit later and how it all shaped out. But I mean, the man got Frank involved with the whole situation, giving him the gun, meeting him in Bangkok, having that drink, going out partying. Now he's going down this rabbit hole again of being, debauchery and being a wild man. And he just leaves him there in Bangkok to his own, his own evil deeds. Rick, that's Rick is a piece of, what, man? Got his girl killed his father, and killed too. And man, Rick is am I gonna go as far as to say is Rick is the big, I don't know, there's no good guys and bad guys in this type of narrative, but I mean, he's a piece of work, man. He killed two bodyguards, shot one in the dome, killed the other one, shot him in the chest, killed his dad, shot him 3 times in the chest. Again, going back to symbolism, bad things come in 3. I think he shot him 3 times. We'll go and see that scene to confirm that. But man, Rick, he went full heel in this episode in a narrative sense. He was his anger, his trauma consumed him. It ultimately consumed him. We'll talk about the Mook and Guy Talk stuff. That's another thing that comes to mind that didn't really entirely work for me. But Yeah, man, I'm feeling away. I'm feeling away about the lady group. Um, because it's not that I wanted, nothing crazy had to happen. Like no one had to die in the group, but I just felt like the way that it was concluded, it felt unearned a little bit to me. And we'll specify more when we get to that scene when Lori kind of breaks down in front of him. But I don't know. I feel like there was more on the meat of that storyline. Like the whole what was it last week when Kate, or maybe 2 weeks ago, when Lori said that Kate husband Dave, or that Jacqueline was flirting with Dave at her wedding, however many 15 years ago, whatever the case may be. And Kate was like, huh? Like that didn't really have any callback or payoff. Which I thought there was gonna maybe be some more to explore there, because I do very much feel the same, that Kate and Jacqueline had more of a bond, more of a friendship than they did with Lori. So that never really went anywhere. I don't even know why they mentioned that Jacqueline was married, because I thought that the husband, her boyfriend, Harrison, I think his name was, that didn't really have any payoff to it at all. I'm assuming they had an open relationship. He didn't answer his phone. He said he was on set for all day, and I answered him that that's not how that works. You're not all on set all day when you can't answer your phone when you have a break during your cut between scenes. So I think there's some infidelity going on there, but that didn't really go anywhere. And then the Lori of it all, like they mentioned her job, they mentioned her daughter, they mentioned her previous divorce and paying alimony. I don't know. I just feel like it was building and building and building to, I thought it was gonna be like this clash of like, put all your shit on the table and let each other know how you really feel about each other. But I mean, listen, I'm not condoning toxicity and friends not, coming to grips and being mature and being able to speak your truth. But I feel like there was a lot more to dive into with them, as far as their insecurities, jealousies, resentments, mistakes. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Am I tripping? Am I tripping on that? Do you all feel the same as far as the three women? Three great actors, Um, I think they're all phenomenal. I'm a Carrie Coon fan for life. Shout out to Leftovers, one of the greatest shows of all time. But I don't know, man. I'm thinking about this scene here very early on, where Lori comes, or Jacqueline comes in and kind of apologizes for the Valentine situation. It's a apology that feels a little too late at this point. She's been lingering. This has been lingering for, I'm trying to think, probably about a day and a half since they had this interaction, or that, it was revealed that she slept with him. And Lori's like, I know she's sleeping, and we'll talk about it later, but they didn't talk about it. And I guess, I don't know, maybe this is the TV watcher in me of like, I want the drama. Maybe that's kind of consuming my thoughts right now. I mean, it is very mature of them to, come Lori says, puts all that BS aside, and I don't know, was that her truth? We'll talk about it later. I don't know. It's kind of, I feel incomplete with that. Let me see. Let me go to the chat and see if you guys are on the same wavelength, or if I'm missing something with the friend groups. The friends are now trauma bonded due to Rick. True. True. Yeah. So that's something to consider, but I just felt like it was something there. It felt like there was so much more to explore. There was two friends also felt sorry for her, which made sense. They were easy to forgive. Yeah. Carrie Coon's character was the only one who somewhat spoke her truth. The other two were so superficial, even in the end. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, Kate, I feel like she really was just there to be the mediator and just kind of keep the two friends from tearing each other apart. Which they, again, I felt like it was building to that. Not like I didn't want them to have like a little physical fight, but I just felt like there was something to talk about. Like, there was all these little hints at the dinner table a couple weeks ago in episode 6, or maybe it was last week actually, episode 8, when they were at the table and she was like, "You always do this, yada yada yada." But that just seemed to be, I don't know. I just felt there was more to explore. Because listen, I think we all, if you have friends that you have been to, bat with, ride or dies, there's always those moments where you're like, "Oh, you remember when you did this?" And people change, people evolve, but I just feel like it was more to explore there. That just felt a little incomplete. But I guess it is always good when people can be mature, and even if they are feeling a certain way, they can find their solace in being in the moment and not allowing, similar to Rick, not allowing their hate and trauma consume them. Which I guess another character, and we'll talk about the highs and lows, but another character that I kind of felt a little like I thought it was gonna maybe be a payoff with Saxon. He's reading the books for Chelsea. I mean, I don't think I think some people might assume that Chelsea was gonna maybe give in and call Saxon and maybe hook up with him, but obviously it didn't happen, and I'm glad it didn't because it just shows how pure of a character and great of a character Chelsea was. She was very loyal to the soil, but yeah, Saxon, solid arc. It gave me more than I initially imagined because obviously this is a stereotypical character you've seen before on television, the quote unquote, you know, kiss ass kind of, wants to be in the shadow of his father. He's okay with that. He wants to be the man his father was. He doesn't care who gets in the way for him to, get his goals. Kind of macho, douchey type of frat guy. We've seen that. And then, throughout the season, he kind of the show explores his vulnerabilities with him and his brother hooking up and how awkward and uncomfortable that made him. And then I guess at the end of the day, Saxon did care about Chelsea. It wasn't just another notch on his belt, or was it? Was it a part of his game? Was the whole reading the book, doing the whole, meditation, was that just a game for him to try to, again, put a check mark on his challenge? Because, we go back to early in the season, people, you need to give them what they want or whatever. No one knows what they want. That whole, Andrew Tate type of mindset of alpha males or what have you. But I don't know. I'm conflicted on Saxon because I don't feel like at the end of the day we got a resolution to his character, because obviously Chelsea didn't choose him. She chose Rick. And I don't know if we're assuming that after this vacation, he's going to take the knowledge from those books. Does he even know? We'll talk about the ending because I feel that was a little bit incomplete. We'll get to that. But like, what does he walk away with from this vacation? Is he going to be a changed man? Like, does he even know Chelsea died? Does he even care? Again, was he sincere? Was it all a part of his grand plan to sleep with this girl who's been, ignoring him this whole time? But anywho, as we kind of navigate through the rest of the first 10 minutes or so, Piper, Lachlan head home. She doesn't want to talk about it, yada, yada, yada. This moment here, stepdad meets the stepson, formally this time. Shout out, let me just say this now. Shout out to Zion and Belinda. I'm glad they survived this season. I love the dynamic between them, from the first time we met Zion, not in episode 1, but when we properly met the character and when he appeared in episode 6, I believe. And we saw him walking in on his mom and he didn't like have a spaz out moment. Like I respect this family. I like this dynamic. We'll save it for the end. Will we see more of them come season 4? I read something today that Patrick Schwarzenegger said that he heard word around the street or on set was that Mike White might think about doing an all-star season, I think is what he called it, where he brings in all the other characters from the previous seasons that obviously survived. Not all of them, I guess, but maybe some of the key ones, and having them have a season. And I think he mentioned himself, like him, Shane from season 1, and Theo James character. I can't think of his name right now in season 2, but he said like bring them back and other characters. Do we get Belinda back in season 4? And Zion? Do you want to see them back? Do you want to see what she does with the money? Do you want to see her open up her spa? Hold up, wait a minute. Season 4. We don't go to a White Lotus. We go to a destination that has maybe a White Lotus. But while the guests are there, there's a competing not hotel. She does not open up a hotel, but there's a competing spa within the White Lotus, and it's Belinda's spa, and maybe that's how we see her again. And Zion maybe is working there for his mom. That would be interesting if they they do that, get her back. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Belinda. We'll continue on with them a little bit later. But I do love, and I don't know if this was on purpose. Whenever you watch these shows that have like layers upon layers of symbolism and different things that can maybe represent certain things, was this him wearing green? Did that symbolize anything for him wanting that money? Which I love, man. I love that scene that we'll talk about here later. But I wonder, if the green that he's wearing, if it's if it's just part of the wardrobe, it just happens to be the clothes that he was wearing that day, or if it was to speak to the green that they get a little bit later. I don't know. But again, shout out to the mother and son dynamic, which I thought was definitely an A+ for me this season. Their whole dynamic was just not bogged down by things that we're used to seeing on TV, right? Stereotypical mother and daughter relationship, or mother and son, I should say, relationship. Which, speaking, the reason I said mother and father, because the scene I have up here, I think we all kind of saw this coming. It wasn't too much of a surprise, but Piper, no. I think we kind of saw this coming, as far as her finally admitting to her parents that she didn't like the food. And we saw that from last week when she was kind of telling her brother to eat it, and she didn't seem to enjoy it that much. And when she was in her bed, the leaky pipes, she's come to realization. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think this makes her a bad person, that she didn't want to live that life. You don't have to. You can still find your religion without being in the trenches. And who knows, 10, 15 years from now, maybe she'll go back to the monastery, and she's more mature and lived more life to kind of appreciate those things in life, the simplicity of life. But I think her coming to realization, to me, was more so about her just wanting an escape from her family, the lifestyle, the money, the privilege that she was born into. I think she just wanted to kind of escape that, no matter the cost. And then it was in her head that she can, I can go and learn Buddhism and go to this monastery and kind of live this life of peace and of like I said, living with my inner thoughts and not being fulfilled by life materialistic things, but being fulfilled by having your inner peace, having confidence in yourself, and knowing who you are. All the stuff that people do when they want to search for themselves. So I don't think this makes Piper a bad character or a bad person, that she wanted to not live in the monastery. But I think what it didn't do for me is it's just like, we've been kind of going along on this journey with Piper. And listen, to be fair, I think every season of the White Lotus is always characters that are always in the kind of the foreground compared to, Rick, Chelsea, Timothy, Saxon, Lachlan. There's, the kind of background characters, supporting characters, literally supporting characters. They don't necessarily have a fulfilled story. And that's how I feel about Piper. Like, I think there's an idea there of, again, especially when you're in, I would say Piper's 23, 22, if that. We've all might have had those moments in our early lives, might be that age now, where it's just like, I want to do something different. I want to have this completely different lifestyle than my mom and dad. I want to prove myself to myself, but also to them, that I don't have to rely on them. I mean, I think we've all done that, or have done, or will do that. But I almost feel like there's a sense of redundancy with Piper and Lachlan, two characters that are kind of in a path of like self-discovery. I think Lachlan had a more of a payoff than she did, but it's just like, she didn't really go through. Obviously, Lachlan went through some shit this season on a lot of levels, but I don't feel like Piper's character had enough there to really make me feel like there was a complete arc, and like a real, again, the realization of like, I didn't want to live this life is pretty obvious, but it just feels a little, I don't know, unsatisfying. But what do you guys think? Piper also didn't let her brother come onto her. Yes, that would have. There was a moment there. There was a moment in last week's episode when they were laying in the bed. Like I thought he was going to lean in for the kiss. And I'm like, okay, Mike, we're gone. We're going. Where are we going with this? Which we'll talk about that later. Like speaking of where are we going with this? We'll talk about Piper or Lachlan's reasoning to what he did a couple weeks ago. But as we see Piper crying, and I will say, what we consider what Piper's storyline, I don't want to say the only purpose that it served, but I think it was in service. Her kind of mini arc, if you want to call it that, was in service of Timothy's arc, which was him coming to realization that Victoria, Saxon, now her, they can't live a life without the things that they've been provided with. They can't live without the funds, the money, the clothes, the jewelry, all the stuff that they probably have in their day-to-day lives, or as Victoria calls it, the greatest life that anyone's ever lived. So, I mean, maybe I'm not the biggest fan of when other characters, and it depends on how it's done, right? But I feel like there was something to present with Piper, but it just felt like it was just in service of Timothy's character. And again, just tying into the whole idea of his family wasn't prepared for something else than what they have, which now we're getting deep. Now I'm just kind of spitballing, but it's just like the idea of like, and this is just outside the show, but when you have someone like a Piper, Lachlan, Saxon, who are born into these opportunities and born into privilege and born into certain things and born into expectations and born with a silver spoon, is it their fault? Should they not accept those things? Right? I think we all know people in our lives that have more things in life. The opportunity, they had parents that were put in positions to continue the legacy, and generational wealth. Does that make Lachlan, Piper and Sexton bad people because of the stuff they got? I don't know. Because that's the whole thing that she was saying in this scene here. She's just like, I feel bad because I feel like I should maybe live life less than the one I'm given. I don't know. Maybe I'm babbling. You guys know what I'm saying? Let me know if you kind of understand what I'm getting at. But anyway, going back to I think the point of this scene was just to show that Timothy, was just like, damn, I felt like, maybe I raise these kids to not want to. I don't know. It's just I'm conflicted because we don't know their lives outside of the show, obviously, but we have to kind of create that narrative for ourselves. We would just imagine what their lives looks like in North Carolina. But anywho, I think the point of this scene was just to show that he doesn't have a family that can live without the luxuries of life. Tim is going to recuperate from the accident. Yeah, we'll talk about Tim's future. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like at the end of the day, Piper, even Victoria, are all in service of just Timothy, who, let me know how y'all feel about this. I've seen it online. The Jason Isaacs, phenomenal actor, one of my favorite actors. Any Marvel fans out there? I know a lot of people have been fan casting him to be Magneto potentially, which I think would be great, but neither here nor there. He's a great actor. A lot of people felt, and I can understand the sentiment. A lot of people felt that is wasted the word. I don't know. I can't think of a better word right now, but a lot of people felt that he kind of was one note for like 90% of the season, with him being on the after effects of the lorazepam, and he was pretty much like a shell of himself for like most of the season. And when you have someone that talented, you would hope that they have a little bit more versatility in their role. But he was, and listen, don't get it wrong. One of my pet peeves in movies and shows is when actors don't play like being under the influence. They like overplay it or they underplay it, or when they're drinking alcohol and they're just like, it's just bad acting. I think he played a person that's like literally in limbo and just like on an even keel for most of the season. I think he played that well, but I just wish that there was maybe a little bit more dynamic to what he was doing for most of the season. But did you all feel that? Did you feel like they kind of wasted Jason Isaac and he didn't really get a ton of character stuff to do? It was just him moping around because of the situation back home. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Let me know. Let me know. Got a super sticker. Thank you. Brooke, I appreciate the love, support, and I appreciate all of it. We got over 1,000 people in the chat. Like I said, this is free. That thumbs up, y'all. Hit the thumbs up, hit the share button, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, man. It's over 3,000 videos, long form, short form, everything in between. So consider subscribing if you like what you see. Stick around. Speaking of sticking around, how do you move past what these two guys did? How do you move past? See super chat. Oh, did you give me another super chat, Luke? Did I miss one? Oh, there's a couple of them. Oh, thank you, Luca. Let's see. Paul says, more I think about the finale, the less I like it. That's what we're here for, to kind of break it down. Elliot, which of the Rattlers do you think I will have the most? Well, wait, hold on. Let me move this out of the way if I can read it better, make it bigger. Elliot, which of the Rattlers do you think I will have the most spiritual change? Like you, I think I get what you're saying. Is like, who do I just think will have the biggest? I mean, Lachlan. I think it's Lachlan 100% because he literally died and came back and saw God, as he said. So I think Lachlan will be the most spiritually changed when they go back home, mentally, physically, all of the above. But after that, I think Timothy, if I were to rank them, like just going back home in general, who I think is going to be changed forever, Lachlan, Timothy, Piper, Saxon, and Victoria. That's how I would rank it as far as from your question being Lachlan number one, but then just in general, who's going to come back home just changed. That would be my order. So do y'all agree with that or any disagree? Let me know. But I appreciate the super chat, Luca, and also Luna and Brooke as well. Appreciate it. Speaking of Lachlan, speaking about changing, he gives his brother his reasoning, which to me doesn't justify what he did. But sometimes when you're watching movies and shows, you can't always inject your morals and your beliefs and your decisions into the character because you aren't the character. Sure, there might be things you can relate to, but you're not them. But understanding what we learned from Lachlan this season, going back to when he had the when he went with the posture person to help him have a proper posture, he had told him that he's a people pleaser. He told him like, you don't what did he say? I think he questioned his sexuality. He brought up like, you don't know if you like no, he said you had like feminine energy or something. And he also said that he was a people pleaser. So I think we've known that for a while now. And I don't know if that monk saying that to him was what led him to doing what he did to his brother. And also with what he says in this scene is like, basically, I'm trying to be like you, bro. Like you said that you get off of these, going back to the scene with Chloe and Chelsea and that whole situation that was going on. Like all you care about is just getting off. So I was like, hey, let me help you out. I mean, again, I don't think that's much of for me. Not that I would ever be in that situation, but again, putting myself aside from it, I think again from a narrative character perspective, I guess in his mind it justifies it. I don't even know. I don't even know if Lachlan, if he means what he just said, or if again people pleaser, he's just thinking that that's what his brother would want to hear. But even that moment seems a little like that's the years of therapy, man, for both of those characters. That's a pretty nasty thing to do to a sibling of yours. But even that, like, I wanted to hear more from, like, I mean, I know Saxon is just kind of like, what would he say? Let's forget it forever. And I think that speaks to just like a one of the general themes of the season is like, I think all the characters suppress their traumas, suppress their dramas. They didn't know how to communicate their issues. That's everybody in this show. But specifically, with these two here, that's something you don't bury. That's something that's pretty, at least in my mind, is hard to move past. And I was hoping that maybe with him reading the books and being more tapped into his spirituality and being more tapped into his feelings, because we've seen that as the weeks gone by, he's been a little bit more vulnerable. He's been speaking his mind a little bit more. He's kind of brushed aside the whole like macho men don't, have emotions type of persona. So I was hoping that he like said to him in that moment, like, dude, what you did scarred me for life. Like that's um I don't know if you want to go as far as to say it was like assault, because at least in my mind, going back to that scene, Lachlan didn't take the drug, so he wasn't as heavily influenced as the others, and his brother was, and Chloe was, and Chelsea was in that situation, and they weren't in the right frame of mind. And then to do what I don't know, there's a lot of layers to kind of dissect with that, but I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more to this scene. We're gonna get to the good stuff. This is we're talking about it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. But I wish there was a little bit more to explore with that. How do y'all feel about the Lachlan and the Saxon? It's not a confrontation, but at least they spoke about it. Like, how do y'all feel like it was something that was handled younger than this accent? But yeah, it was predatory. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I feel like it was a little, yeah. Let's see. My man Stress was drunk. Not even, yeah, 18. Yeah, I feel like there was more to explore there with that whole conversation. I haven't been on StreamYard in so long. We're kind of like, oh, I didn't know you could do this and that. Anywho, how do y'all feel about the Lachlan Saxon? Feel good about it? Feel bad about it? Feel incomplete about it? Lori's looking at her two friends in the pool, and that ties back to later. I like Guy Talk. He finally at least got the courage to confront Valentine about his friends, who immediately, we know it's a lie, but Valentine tells him, oh, I don't know them. They're like gym friends of mine. But of course, we know them to be his friends from back home from his country. So he's trying to be assertive. He's trying to be what Mook wants him to be. He wants to, take the job a little bit seriously. Yeah. And we see that a little bit later, kind of that, in a sense, he's almost like the adult version of Lachlan, where like he has his, I mean, one thing that's different between him and Lachlan, he's number one, he's an adult, but also he seems to at least have a foundation as far as his religion and his beliefs, nonviolence, Buddhism. But then, the idea of like allowing your lust or allowing others that maybe don't operate on the same personal journey that you're on to kind of sway you off your path, with Mook being that I'm kind of using in this example. In the Lachlan Guy Talk comparison, to me, it's just like they allowed other people to influence them, and they allowed other people to sway them to kind of do what they think they want them to do. They want them to be the people, like, again, Lachlan with doing what he did with his brother, him going to the monastery with his sister, Guy Talk doing the whole, trying to talk to a supervisor potentially about the robbery, and later we see him with the gun and ultimately shooting Rick, and kind of course, he made the decision to pull the trigger, but it was just like that influence from Shatala about like kill him, shoot him, and like having that sense of pressure and allowing others to control your fate and your destiny. And that's another thing about this episode, the whole title about faith or fate and consequences, good or bad, just accepting them for what they are. So there's layers there, but I just wish it was a little bit more. The execution was maybe a little bit more satisfying. Chelsea talking to Lachlan again. Do you all feel as though Lachlan was genuine at this point in the season? I think early on we can all agree that he was very much, a notch on the belt. I'm gonna crack this code. This girl is ignoring me. She's avoiding me. But I'm gonna now make this a challenge for me on this vacation. I'm gonna sleep with her, or at least make out with her, or, whatever his tally mark of success is deemed by. But at this point in the season, do you all think that he was trying to make an actual connection, right? After the situation with his brother and, kind of being embarrassed, obviously. But do you all think he genuinely was trying to, I don't want to say boo up, because they're obviously not going to be together on this vacation, but like, what did Saxon want from this at this point in the season? Did he really wanted like a little girlfriend on it? I don't know. I don't know. Again, this whole idea of everyone in this family is, besides Victoria. Well, Victoria's looking for something. She's looking for the drugs, but they're all in search of something. They're all looking for something. And I guess that kind of speaks to another theme of like, you have everything at your disposal, but yet you always want more. The thing you can't want, the thing you can't have drives you, right? So like, was it a little bit of both, that he wanted her so bad, but at the same time, he sees a genuine connection. Like, this is someone that sees through my BS, and this is like this is attractive to me because he can probably get a girl so easy. I think early on in the season, he talked about he had his credit cards. He can pay for this because he was comparing his money to Rick. Oh, if it's about money, I got money. But then as the season went by, he can clearly see that didn't impress her. The abs, the money, all that stuff. So there is some stuff there. There's some nuance there that I think, to answer my own question, I think as the season went on, he genuinely did want to make a connection with someone. And that person was Chelsea. But unfortunately, Chelsea didn't make it. And we'll talk about that. Let me see. Let me see. Yes, he wanted to have sex with Chelsea and was using the spirituality stuff to try to get to her. Yeah, I think we'd agree with that. But do you think that there was at any point that he was trying to genuinely, by reading the books, by taking on more of less of a aggressive approach towards her? Do you think that there was a moment where he was just like, no, I'm going to actually try to make a connection, whether the end results come to physical connection or emotional connection or spiritual connection? Do you think there's an ounce of Saxon that had something more than the physical attraction, more than the a sexual attraction? Was there anything more to him at this point in the show? Do you feel that? Let me know. But let's see. Clicking all the wrong buttons here. Let's see. So we're about halfway through the episode, and a moment happens here between him and Chelsea where he tells Chloe like, I'm sorry, I couldn't help. And that's why, again, I think I'm leaning towards the whole idea. Like, I think he found some sense of Chelsea was kind of this beacon of hope for a lot of characters, Rick being one of them, and then Saxon being the other. But obviously she's taken for her heart's taken by someone else. And this goes to the trailer breakdown I did earlier this week, where I was thinking like, is this a dream? Is this the afterlife? But no, it was real life. He let that monkey off of his back. So he thought. He let the monkey off his back. And this goes back to episode 1. I want to say episode 1 or 2, when Chelsea and Rick were at dinner. I think it was the first night they were there, and he was still pissy and upset. And obviously, we know that he was on a mission at that point, and he was just focused on confronting Jim. But at the dinner table, she told him, you know, I think I am, well, not I think, but I'm going to give you back your joy no matter if it kills me. And then you think about bad luck comes in threes, and you think about what she said to Saxon episode 6 when they were sitting down on the beach chairs. She said that there's a battle between me and Rick's soul. I might be adding that in, but there's a battle for Rick's happiness and peace, and she's going to either win or she's going to either lose. So it's been it's been planted this whole time. And I talked about this in my breakdown whenever that episode happened about like when people, and I've done this, you guys probably did this, when we have these people that we can quote unquote fix, right? That we see the potential in someone, but they're not all the way there, and we think we can like level them up. But in doing so, we take so much from ourselves and take so much from our self growth and our self journey and what have you, that we forget to take care of ourselves. And we can put ourselves in positions where, in this case, obviously to the extreme, you can lose your life in doing so. But taking it back to just, when things aren't taken to that next level, you're draining yourself by doing that, right? You're missing out on opportunities for not, finding love, but just missing out on opportunities of loving yourself, we're getting deep, y'all. But no, seriously though, I think Chelsea unfortunately allowed that idea of like, I see the potential in Rick and I can bring that out of him, even if it literally kills me. I mean, I know figuratively she didn't think that would do that, but obviously it unfortunately did. But yeah, I really like the Chelsea character, man, because I think out of like all the characters, I think I relate to her the most because I do see myself in her as far as just like that idea, and not even romantically. I am someone that wants to help people out, and even if it affects me or what have you. So I think Chelsea was probably, as we'll talk about it, we'll do the character rankings. I think Chelsea to me is probably my favorite character of this season just because of what she represented, the good and the bad of what resulted in her ending. But yeah, man, R.I.P. to Chelsea, man. She was a real one. And also Aimee, I'm just a fan of hers in general. A show that was really good, really good in the first season. Second season took a tip off, and season 3 and 4 was terrible. Sex Education. If you guys haven't watched Sex Education, it started off really good, but it did not end well. But she was one of the few things that was like consistent throughout the season. But yeah, I like Chelsea, man. Really good character. I like that actress. She's a really good actress. So rest in peace. We'll obviously talk more about her a little bit later. But let's see. Let me see what you guys are saying about Chelsea. Did Rick even go to the hospital when Chelsea got? Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, he did. We didn't see the scene when she was in the hospital, but he ended up getting like one of like the little bikes and followed them to the hotel or to the hospital. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that she I know people that, and like I said, I've been that person a few times, and you learn from it. And obviously, the extreme is something that happens to Chelsea, but in most cases, you learn. Hopefully, you learn from that and don't put others self put others' feelings before yours. Like that's something I'm a big, as I've gotten older, advocated for. And there's nothing wrong with like obviously being supportive and helping out your partner in life, but it comes with a cost. What are your ranks of the season? This is the weakest to me. I'll say that for later. I do have my rankings, and we'll say that for later. But I'll make sure to get back to that question though. But as we go through Chelsea, Chloe, got another moment here. And this is where we see, I think this is honestly the only scene this season between these two characters, like on a one-on-one conversation. Timothy goes to his son after Piper is the last one of his family members to kind of cave in to the idea of not being able to live without money. He goes to his son and says, "Listen, son, could you live without the money, the house, be practically homeless?" And he thinks about it and says, "Yeah, I think I could." Um, and I believe him. I don't think he's shown. I think out of all the siblings, the whole idea of like, what was it? See no evil, speak no evil, be no evil. Is that the mantra? The three monkey thing that we saw early in the season that they were supposed to represent. Let me just make sure that's right. I'm not talking crazy. See no evil. I think it's see no evil, speak no evil, and three monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So yeah, with Lachlan representing the I guess you would say he would be, who would he be in that wisdom, those three wise monkeys? Will we say he's the see no evil? Because he sees, like, even though he knows his brother's has his self-absorbed, his sister's kind of a someone that's kind of seeking things for fulfillment, and their mom is obviously their mom, and their dad's driven by money. I guess we would say that Locke represents see no evil, but maybe he represents all three of them in a way. Anyway, he speak no evil, speak see no evil. Again, I mean, maybe someone can make a case that he's all three of them in a way. But in this scene, though, Timothy tells him that he is. Well, he doesn't tell him. He says, could you live without the money? He says yes. And I think at that moment he realized, okay, I don't have to take you out. We're gonna say Belinda's spot could be a Black Lotus. I would watch that in a heartbeat. But yeah, so he sees his son as the only one out of everyone in his family that at least gave him the answer that he was looking for. And I mean, I think some of the decision making by Timothy this season, at least towards the end, his clumsiness and mishandling of the poison might have something to do with the drugs. Because, I mean, just stupid the way he just left that out. But anyway, he gets the answer that he was hoping for the rest of his family. And this is a perfect screen grab here of that moment where he's just like, I'm not a total F up. At least one of my kids has a good head on their shoulder, even if I didn't necessarily guide them that way. At least they're naturally a good person, even though he doesn't know what his son did. But yeah, this is the one time that he's just like, okay, I don't have to Jonestown everyone in my family. Little moment of it. But of course, once that smile happened, I think if you guys joined me during the watch party, it was like, oh, there's the family member that's gonna die. We don't have to spend too much time on this because again, I feel like this story kind of petered out after a while. But Valentine approaches Guy Talk and says, "Listen, man, you were right. You were on to me. You were correct. We robbed the place, or at least, they robbed it, and I was a distract." He didn't get to the details, but it was enough. He kind of read the room. He knew what he was talking about. He admits to it and says, if you tell I'm going to die, they're going to die. I think he was being extreme. Like, you're not going to, I mean, well, maybe in his country, maybe they are. I don't know. Anyway, he made it seem like it was death. It was life or death. If you tell on me, we're all going to die. Black Lotus. That was Dallas says Black Lotus was a skit on SNL. It was, and it was really damn funny too. It was during season 2. Very funny skit. Which, not to derail the conversation, SNL, not the biggest fan of SNL in a very long time, but they have their spots, and that was one of them with that skit. But yeah, back to the scene. Again, this is the whole, and again, I think there's a lot of parallels to I guess the 3, I don't know, maybe there is a three character similarity arc with Chelsea, Guy Talk, and Lachlan, where they're all people. Do we even throw Lori in that conversation? Even Belinda in the conversation? I'm just thinking about people that are good at heart and they want to do the right thing. I don't even know if you consider this doing the right thing with Guy Talk not snitching on him. Like, is that doing the right thing, or is he just yet again being taken advantage of with feeling bad for Valentine and feeling bad for two other people he never met? Yeah, I think like, what is? I'm sorry, but like, what don't do that. Don't rob. Don't have anything to do with, like, I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a, I don't know if Guy Talk, just morally speaking, he's so about his moral compass about doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is to turn them in because they did something bad. They robbed. I mean, no one died, luckily, but there was still, a crime committed. So that doesn't make you a bad person by doing the right thing and doing your job. Number one. But if we're putting that aside for a second and just talk about the moral compass of it all, it's like the right thing to do would have turned them in. I mean, even if you want to split the difference, you turn in the two guys, Alexi and Vlad, and maybe Valentine can figure it out from there. But yeah, I don't know, Guy Talk. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm even a bigger fan of you after I saw something that we're gonna take a quick commercial break for however many seconds this is, and take a look at the actor, Guy Talk.
Get down, good Lord. Baby got 'em open all over town, no. Strictly busy, don't play around. Cover much ground, got paid by the pound, yeah. I can't get her out of my mind, no. I think about the girl all the time, yeah, yeah.
Where's the hook? I need the hook.
I like the way you work it, no diggity. I gotta bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity. I gotta bag it up.
That is great. I saw that earlier this week, and I just had a kick out of that. So funny, so funny. But and this is just a side tangent for a second. I don't know the actor's name who's on the screen now, who plays Guy Talk. Lisa, I don't know if that's her legal name, but Lisa, who plays Mook. I've been watching a lot of their interviews over the past few weeks. And they have so much personality, have such great chemistry, and they had good chemistry in the show. But I just feel like they were kind of, I don't say held back, especially Mook. I thought that she was going to have a little bit more to do, but I just feel like there could have been more to them, like personality wise. Like they seemed, like I said, if you've seen that clip I just played you all, they seem so fun, and that's the part of acting. Like, you don't have to play the person you are in real life, but I just wish that there was just a little bit more than just the somber, good guy, finish last, and being kind of swayed by other people's, bad decisions and it influencing him. But anyway, I just want to play that clip because I just get a kick out of that. Pam, talk about wasted opportunities. I thought Pam was going to be this season's like Armand. I thought she was going to be like kind of, secretly messing with the Ratliffs during their vacation, maybe, or kind of being a little snippy with them. I mean, the actress did good. She didn't overplay it. I thought she stole every scene she was in. I just really liked the actress. She had a really good personality to her and just good screen presence. But I did think that this was going to have a payoff, and essentially it did in a way. But the whole phone thing, and then listen, when theories don't go my way, I'm happy with that. When they work, they work. When they don't, whatever. I'm not mad about the theory not playing out. I just think that would have been a little bit more of maybe more dynamic to the moment of her hinting at, I'm gonna put your phones on the boat. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, by the time they get on the boat, the family's gonna be drinking the poison. And they're gonna feel the effects on the boat, and he's gonna look on the phone, and the case is closed or whatever. But that didn't happen. But I think, again, the underlying commentary with the whole cell phone things, I think we can all relate to it, as I have my phone literally attached right next to me. the idea of the and this, I think this, correct me if I'm wrong as far as Buddhism, but like the removal of the detaching yourself from materialistic things. I think that's kind of the big thing with the whole phone. I thought the phone was going to be play a bigger part of it. I was like, as a reveal, but yeah, I think the whole point of it is just, again, detaching yourself from, everyday life, and detaching yourself from materialistic things. So it's just one of the many themes that I think that the show hinted at, touched on, that I think we can all relate to. All right, let me scroll through. We're only an hour. Okay. Favorite scene. Let's break this down like a fraction. This is my favorite scene of the episode. So at this point, Zion has convinced his mom to at least hear him out. He offered us 1,000, and shout out to all y'all in the comments that said this on the video. Like, if this was me, not saying that I would be in this situation, but if it was me, we got 100,000. You got to offer a little bit more money, man. This scene was great. Anyway, he convinces his mom to meet with Greg and to offer more. I wish I could play the scene, but I just saw that my watch party was blocked, because I guess, and this is probably gonna be blocked because I played even though I remixed it, I played the audio at the beginning. I'm gonna have to clip that out. But anyway, the in the watch party, I laughed at the scene so hard, is where he brings up the $5 million. Listen, that boy was raised well. First off, the scene just plays well because this is the first time we actually get to see Zion having a little bit more to do, right? He has a little bit more of lines, number one, but also just a little bit more dynamic. We get to see him across another actor, in this case being Greg Johns as the actor there, and of course with his mom in the scene. I thought this scene was great, man, because again, it just speaks to, again, the whole idea of like this cycle. Belinda taking the money from Greg, morally speaking, isn't the right thing to do. Belinda taking the money from Greg, from a personal connection, she had really no ties to Tanya. She owed Tanya nothing. And if I'm being honest, Tanya didn't. Can we be real for a second here? Tanya didn't owe her nothing, right? Like, yes, it was messed up. She told her she was gonna give her the, season 1. She told her she was gonna give her the spy and yada yada yada. I mean, shit happens, right? So I don't really think Tanya owed her that money, but I get the idea of how that could, obviously upset someone and be disappointing and be, let down. And also Belinda being like, the whole season she's talked about how she's been, ever since that moment, she's been kind of living a life of like feeling unfulfilled. And the personal side of me, I love that she got the money. I love that they're both okay. But what are we saying about this character that I love? You're taking his money from a person you think killed his wife. What does that say about you as a person? I mean, listen, let's just be honest for a second. 5 million. Look, I mean, this is a made up scenario, but if you were in this situation, and I'm not talking about 100,000, I'm talking about the $5 million. And obviously the show didn't go to the whole minutia. Like, can you track that money? Could it track back to her? Could it be in compliance with a murder? Could someone say, well, this was a vendetta. You had something to do with the murder, yada, yada, yada. Putting that aside, would you take the money? We're talking, that's $5 million, $100,000. Like, I would take that right now. Like, I would do wonderful things with that, but $5 million is a life changer. And if you're smart, you can turn that into generational money. Y'all taking the money? I mean, that's $5 million. That's tax free, yeah. I mean, I could sit here and be like, I wouldn't take the money because I'm a good citizen. I mean, that's when you put in that position. And I love the fact that at the end of the day, we gotta put aside our characters we love, good or bad, good or evil, morally gray characters. At the end of the day, Mike White, there's no quote unquote good guy, good girl, good character, morally grounded, good person in the show. There's always maybe Chelsea, I would say, I'm just thinking of all the characters in the season through all seasons. Chelsea might be I can't think of the mock bucker, the kid from season one. He was pretty like a straight arrow. There's like one or two characters per season that are pretty clean compared to everyone else. And I would say in this season it's Chelsea. But even like a Belinda, like for the most part, she's a good character. I enjoy her. I like her. But even this scene, for example, this kind of puts a little damper on her morals. But neither here nor there. I can understand why someone would take it, especially with the whole idea of like the opportunity that presented itself. And this whole season, she's been like, oh, I've been shitted on. I can't, my life's been throwing all these curveballs at me and now it presents itself. And do you take that opportunity or do you let it squander? Do you let it eat you alive? It's interesting. Was it earned? No, of course it wasn't earned. But as you all are saying in the comments, karma, I don't know if karma works like that. But I mean, someone had to die in order for her to get the money. Not that she had anything to do with it, obviously. I mean, we can go on and on and on about what's right or what's wrong. I think for the purpose of this show, it's meant to be a right thing. It's meant to be a moment for the character to finally get a win, regardless of where it comes from, right? Even if it comes from the big bad Greg, Team Greg, and it's proposed and manufactured by her son, another good character, that we, at least from what we've seen, we can assume that Zion is a good guy outside of this situation. So it's a sticky situation, but in my gut as a fan of the character in this scene, I like that it's just like, oh, finally, man. It's kind of like Belinda gets her due. So again, I try to look at it at all angles, but I just know from a scene wise, this is my favorite scene of the episode. Zion getting his opportunity to show his acting chops. I'm not familiar with the actor outside of the show. I hope he has many more opportunities in front of him. He did really good in the show. So I like what Zion had to do. I like the Belinda of it all because as we see later on, she's like, I'm not taking this. I'm not taking the money. This is wrong. She steps out and it's all about like going back to her comments from Scarface of like, playing into like the idea of like leading them on, kind of manipulating the situation. And let's be honest, man, Greg's a scammer and the scammer got scammed. So I think I like that just from a narrative perspective. Like I said, it affects the character morally, but again, I don't think any of these characters are quote unquote coming out of the situation clean. So, but that's my favorite scene, man. I loved it. Such a good scene. And it's kind of crazy this whole time we're thinking, and I'm just thinking about the Greg Tanya thing. Do we know that he killed his wife? I mean, we assume. My thought, I'm trying to go back to 2023. I've always felt like Quentin was the one that, like, I don't know, because it goes back to, I'm thinking about season one. Like, you got to think about it. The White Lotus is not for the cheap, not for the poor. Greg was at the White Lotus, which means he had money. I mean, he was retired from the BLM, that whole funny thing. But from the get-go, I felt like, we talk about Valentine, Vlad, and Alexei. It almost felt like he was doing that. And I'm trying to recollect my mind from season one and season three, season two. I've always felt like he was someone that was like, he set up Tanya. Like it was like a big fish. Like, maybe I don't know how far back the research, how far back the recon goes. Like if he was like following her before she went to the White Lotus. But I think after, when they met, he found out who she was. And, from there, it was like the game was on. But like at that point, was it like, let me marry her, get the prenup situation, not having the prenup, having her remove the prenup, having access to the money. And then was Quentin the one that like pursued to set up the murder to get, like, I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever be revealed. I think it was implied. It's like one of those things when you talk about TV and movies is like what's implied, what's not shown, what the audience has to infer, and what the audience has to put on the narrative. Season 4. Anywho, I don't even know how I got into that rap. Oh, I just was talking about like I guess the moral compass of her taking the money. But yeah, I don't know if this is the last of Greg, if we've seen the last of the whole Tanya plot. Because if you guys were watching one of my earlier theories was and I just have to laugh at it because it's funny, man. And this is this is just me being me at this point and making content. It's always fun when you come up with like just wild theories. There was one point in the season where I thought that Tanya was going to be um one of the monitor lizards that Belinda ran into. Secretly deep down in me, something tells me that those animals, like a literal spirit animal, was kind of speaking to her as like Tanya from the grave, warning her to stay away from grave. Anyway, one of my theories early in the season was Tanya was going to be the lizard in her room, kind of literally warning her to stay away. But I don't know, maybe there's still a little bit of that in there, or it's inferred that it could have been looked at that way. Anywho, exactly, Greg was faking dying, of course, was the part of this. Was that ever again? I'm trying to recall. I remember he was sick, and that was the whole thing. Season 1, he was like, live life and live life to the fullest, and I'm out here to before I die. And season 2, we catch up with him, and he's like, oh, your money helped me. So I don't know. He's a scammer, but he got scammed. Well, he didn't get scammed. I think he knew it was like whatever. I'll pay the money to keep my secret. But as we go through, favorite scene. The blender situation. I don't know, man. This is he gets the seeds. And I think, man, if you're dealing with poison, you gotta have some gloves on or something, man. But anyway, he gets some seeds, he puts it in the blender. He starts to blend it up, and then he puts it. Well, he sets it up for the drinks for later, but I don't know. It just seemed like such a clumsy way, and I don't know if it's him because obviously I would assume he's never killed anyone or planned murder, but it was just handled. It was a sense of desperation for sure, and I don't know if that's has anything to do with well, let me retract that. That does have a lot to do. If you guys remember when I broke down what lorazepam, the side effects of that drug is, I think anxiety, I think depression. Let me just look it up. But I know one of the biggest side effects was suicidal thoughts. So that really plays into obviously in the last like 3 or 4 weeks, we've been seeing him fantasizing about taking not only his life, but his family's life. So I think the lorazepam played a big part into not only those thoughts, but also what we see on the screen now of him, obviously planning to Jim Jones his whole family, which we essentially saw him do. So yeah. So one of the it is suicidal thoughts is one of the side effects. So yeah. Yeah. Interesting. But as we go by, let me see. Because I don't want to, we had an hour. I think we got an hour left this episode. I want to kind of go through some of the big moments and then do a character breakdown with you guys or character rankings. But let me know how you guys are feeling about time. I think we're an hour and a half into the stream. If you're enjoying yourself, if you appreciate the conversation, we're going to get to the sad stuff here in a minute, but if you appreciate the commentary, the thoughts, my thoughts, your thoughts, having fun in the chat, again, appreciate all the super chats thus far. But let me know what you all, if you guys are enjoying it by hitting that thumbs up and consider subscribing. All right, dinner scene. Was there anything? I guess we'll talk about this. Again, feeling a little bit. again, I'm going to do a proper breakdown tomorrow, but just thinking of what we got from the dinner scene, all the characters mainly at this point, we got the daughter or son and mom talking about he gave him the money and was hoping for the money to get to the bank account, which we'll talk about. At this point, we see Timothy talking about, we're going to get some drinks a little bit later to celebrate, all that stuff. But I think the scene, I guess the biggest moment, how can I forget? Because it sets up, and we'll talk about her death a little bit later. But of course, kind of full circle. In her mind, she thought she won the battle, right? A couple weeks ago, I'm gonna go. I'm going to fight for the love of this man. I'm gonna fight for the joy for this man, and I think she thinks at this point that she won the battle because let me go to the scene when he says, "I'm not gonna obviously play it, but you guys get the point." When he tells her that she's like, this, I'm gonna make you happy for, I'm misquoting her, but it's basically we're gonna spend the rest of our lives together. And he's like, yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. I'm not gonna lie, that was an emotional moment, man. I love that moment there because it was like this whole season we've been seeing him treating her literally like shit from very early on, mopey, sad, not even sad, but like grumpy, didn't want to be there, didn't want to tell her why he can't go to Australia, didn't want to tell her why they're there, didn't want to go to the beach, didn't want to go to the pool, like just being I haven't had too many hours. Like I need to travel more, but there was, one of my worst fears of traveling besides, someone robbing you or taking your kidneys, all the crazy stuff you can think of. But one of the worst things that I would imagine being on vacation is being on vacation with someone that's just grumpy, terrible, just bringing the mood down. Like you're supposed to be relaxed and they're like the opposite of that. So he was being terrible this whole time. And then finally he tells her, like, I think this is the first time he basically says, yeah, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And it was just like, man, I wish I could find the actual moment, but you guys saw the episode. But either way, it was just such a nice moment for him to finally say that to her. And, obviously before, I think poetically speaking, for her to hear that, I think even though she dies, which we'll talk about that scene when we get there, but like I think for her, like that's all she needed to hear is like she won in her mind, no matter what the end result was, even if it was for that one night. She got his heart, which is sweet. Unfortunately for me though, that great scene was not followed up by another great scene because I just felt like it was a little underwhelming. I don't know if I fully buy into the friend. And we talked about it earlier, but just kind of put a cap on it because this is honestly the last like big moment we see with them. But at this point in the episode, Lori, Jacqueline, and Kate are coming to a realization of like, look, however long of friends they've been, the ups and downs, the Valentine situation, the back and forths, the jealousy, the resentments, the cattiness, the talking behind each other's back. Let's put that aside for a second. Let's just acknowledge we're on this vacation, as Lori or as Jacqueline says, I'm on this vacation. I'm, back home. I'm a celebrity, and not to derail where my mindset's going, but like I thought that her being an actress was going to be playing to the show. Like she's on vacation because her show got canceled, and she needs to feel like she's worth something. She needs to feel like she's, I don't know, more beautiful. I don't know. Anywho, she tells them that, back home, got my stuff back home. I'm a celebrity, but with you all, and what comes with it being a celebrity is, tabloids, rumors, you're fat, you're skinny, you're too ugly, you're too old, all the stuff that Hollywood women go through. I deal with that, but then you all go to the root of my issues, right? It's me. It's not about the materialistic outer beauty, the shell of a person. It's about the inside. You guys know me inside, right? The shortcomings I've have with men and wanting attention, yada, yada, yada. And then, Kate comes in and says her 2 cents about, I think she was talking about her church when she brought up her pastor. I don't know why I immediately thought about, I can't think of the pastor's name right now with that locked his congregation, his followers. Close the doors. I said, close the doors. Anyway, I thought of that, but she was just basically saying that her pastor taught her this thing about blossoming and planting a seed and you blossom and yada yada yada. And then Lori has her 2 cents and is basically like, you know what? I don't like the outcome, but I kind of like the philosophical meaning behind what she was saying about how, even if I don't like religiously believe in this, but like when she says she compares what her religion is like certain things in her life. Work was her God. Her marriage was her God. Her being a mother was her God. And I don't know, that really resonated with me. Like I said, even though I don't believe in that, I don't place, those things on that type of level for me personally, but I understand the sentiment. And I think we can all understand the sentiment of like allowing Marvin Sapp. Yeah, thank you, KO. Allowing life's, I don't know, life things to shape our purpose, right? She used her work was her purpose. Once work she didn't, it didn't fulfill her. She moved on to, okay, well, let's see what marriage has to offer. It didn't fulfill her. Okay, let's see what being a mother has to offer. It didn't fulfill her. And I think the whole idea about that, and again, I think we can all relate to that. It's just like when you put your beliefs in other things to fill your cup, you're going to end up being empty. You're going to be the one that's not going to feel, complete, because you're trying to grab it at everyone else's cup to fill your cup in. But it's kind of like, I can't think of the metaphor, but it's just like it's a hole in the cup. You're taking someone else's energy and trying to apply it to yourself, but it doesn't fill you up because it's not yours. So I really like that sentiment by Lori. It's just unfortunately, as it applies to this friendship, and again, I guess she can say, I don't know, was her friendships her religion? Like she wanted something out of these women to kind of fulfill her cup. I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel like, and maybe this is just the TV entertainment person in me. Like I don't know if a fight would have been more satisfying, like them like actually telling each other about how they feel. But I don't know. Maybe in the moment, clearly in the scene, that's how they felt. I think this is genuine from all the women in the scene, that they feel like this is a moment they can, I don't know, be honest with each other. I don't know. I didn't feel it. Like, I think the way that the scene was intended for, I just didn't feel that it was earned at that point. We've been building to this crescendo of, this confrontation of like truth. And then we end up, I don't know, here. I don't know. I'm just trying to find look, I always commend maturity over immaturity, and growing and growth and recognizing your flaws. But I feel like this just wasn't, I don't know. Let me know if you guys feel the same. But either who, let's move on to the finale. I'm gonna skim through some of this stuff here. Well, no, I'm not. I actually got to talk about this scene because it is a pretty. This is if you were during the watch party, I was pretty much on the edge of my seat during this scene. It was just like I did not know where it was going. I thought it was a dream, but it wasn't. The drinks, he makes the drinks. He doesn't let Saxon. I think if he wasn't, I think he would have allowed Lachlan to have a drink if he wasn't poisoning them. I think he would have been okay with that. But obviously, we know he didn't want him to do that because of what it was. This scene, probably next to the Belinda, Zion, Greg scene, is pretty high up there, because I think, again, the tension, you're just like, they're not about, and they drink it. And it's like, oh, okay. But then again, I don't know the science of it all, like how much you have to consume, if it's just a sip, if it's just, obviously we saw the majority of the seeds was still at the bottom of the blender. So they didn't get, I guess, the most potent poison. but it was still the idea. Like, I think this, I don't know how to phrase this. Obviously, killing your family is much worse than the idea of doing it. But I still think there's something to be said about the idea of him, the intent of what he had, even though, again, he knocks the drinks out of their hand and he doesn't want them to drink it anymore. Obviously, that's there. But it's almost like, is it too late? And I'm not talking about obviously like physically. He saved them. He didn't want, he didn't follow through with it, but it's still like the idea. It's almost like you buy a gun and with the intent of shooting it and intent to taking a life. It's just like, obviously, if you didn't follow through with it, you made the right decision, but it's still like that. Talking about the intent of it is just still kind of messed up. But I think it's a really well done scene. I think all the characters appropriately were in their characters. They did felt very real to the characters in that moment. And particularly with Victoria, help me out in the comments. I think the line was, he knocked it out of their hand because he said the coconut milk was bad. And then Victoria in her Southern accent, coconut milk is bad. That was funny. And I think that's something I like about the scene is like the tone. It's like you're on the edge of your seat and you don't know what's going to happen. Are they about to all drink it and pass out? Are they going to fill it in the morning? Is it not going to work? So all this stuff going through, and then there's a little bit of comedy in there. So I think the scene, and then also obviously the idea of like the camera panning over to the blender, letting us know that this isn't the last of it. And then also too, I'm just thinking about the, thank you, Nikki, the coconut milk is off. The idea of like, okay, are they going to fall asleep and not wake up? Because maybe they did consume it, but it was a really good scene. I think we all, hit the wrong button. I think we all have been theorizing about that for the last few weeks, that we kind of, knew that the poison from episode 1, the blender from episode 2 was going to play a part into it. And it really worked. It's one of those things that, even though it's like one of those things when people say, this is a further conversation, but like when people spoil things for people, it's like, I never really get, and this is just me, certain spoilers obviously affect me more than others, but for the most part, I'm pretty like, oh, okay, yeah, I wish I could have saw that when I see the movie or the show, whatever. But it's just like, to me, it's about the execution and the actual context of when you see it. So again, I think we all knew that this was going to probably come to fruition, but we just didn't know how it was going to play out. And I thought the execution of that scene was really well done. And I think another thing that really stood out to me is just like, this goes back to the Jason Isaac of it all. It's like, I feel like the last like 4, 5, 6 episodes, he's been doing the same thing, taking the pills, sleepy, drowsy, mumbling, saying 2 or 3 lines, and then thinking about killing his family. It's like, we kept doing that over and over and over again. There's really nothing else more for the character to do. So in this episode, we got to see Jason Isaacs, the actor, the great actor, get to flex his acting muscle. So I like in that scene how he's just like, I like that scene a lot. If you guys couldn't tell, but did you guys like it? Let me know. Did you feel it? I don't know if you guys can hear. My dog is knocked out. It's the sweetest thing in the world. I'm snoring. I don't want to wake him up. Yeah, he already said I was gonna put the mic in there. This boy's knocked out. Anyway, Belinda wakes up. She sees, well, we don't see it at that point, but she sees something on her computer, and we obviously know what that is. Jim Hollinger and Shatala Hollinger approach or come back to the hotel. The 2 bodyguards make their jokes towards Guy Talk. Guy Talk talks to the supervisor about, you're a good man, you make the right decisions. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about later. And this is I just got to show this screen here. I think we were all, even again, morally speaking, putting that aside, I think we were all celebrating. I think we all had a little Jerry Maguire, show me the money, and got her paycheck. That was nice. And again, I think we are to assume that this is the end of the Gary, Greg, Chloe, Tanya chapter. But is there Belinda, $5 million, Spa, Punchai, Zion? Is there any more to their story? Do we want more of that story? Do we want to see her open a Spa? Do we need that closure? I don't know. I love the scene. She got the money. Can we just talk? Let me pull this up for a second. Give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see something here. It is let's see if I can find the actual moment. And let's just play a hypothetical. What's the first thing you're doing if you saw that in your account tomorrow morning? What's the first thing y'all doing? I'm paying off my debts, college loans, car notes, bills, paying it off. Luckily, knock on wood, I don't have a ton of debt, but it's enough to get a couple gray hairs every now and then. It's not stress free. I'm paying off my my debt, paying off my mom's debt for sure, buying her a house for sure. I'm not I'm not a car guy. I'm not a jewelry, shoes. I'm not really into the materialistic things, but I am probably buying a house. Not probably. I am going to buy a house, pay it off. The car, I'll probably upgrade my car, but nothing crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like a Bugatti or Lamborghini. You know what I'm saying? I might do a, I don't know, BMW. I don't know. I might go light with that. But paying off the debts, paying off my mom's debts, buying her a house, buying me a house, quitting. Yeah, I think someone said quit. Yeah, that's the first thing you're doing, quitting your job. Well, I don't have like a 9 to 5. I work for myself, but I wouldn't be. Well, I guess I can still. I'm a real estate agent. I can still do that, I guess. But anyway, doing that, and I think I'm taking the rest of that money, and I'm just gonna invest, right, and just keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. $5 million. That's life changing, man. Student loan. I'm not paying no debts. My student loans can absolutely. I'll retire and not change my life. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I genuinely mean this. Like, I'm not like, as soon as I get money, and I've not to get too deep into the woods. There was a point in my early, like mid-20s where I had a really, really good job, and I had like I had some money in the bank account. I'll just say that. And again, it wasn't millions, but it was a good. I had a good amount in my savings in my checking. We getting a little personal, but I had some money in my savings in my checking. It was comfortable. It was comfortable. And it was a nice little run there. And I'm like, I want to get that back again. Anyway, I say all that to say that I wouldn't go crazy again. I say that now. First thing I buy is a private jet, but no, but I do feel like I wouldn't go like on a shopping spree and go crazy. But anywho, $5 million is life changing, man. That is a life changing. Is there any Easter eggs? Is there anything that we zoom in more? Money transfer, Maui taxi, luggage, travel gear, Hawaiian body production, luggage set. So yeah, it was just all her most recent stuff was just the trip. But I'm just trying to see like if it shows how much she had in the bank prior to that, which it doesn't show. Water utility, electric utility. Yeah. Anywho, $5 million. Life changing. Anywho, we could spend all night on that, right? The hypothetical what if. I mean, hell, one day, right? For us all out there, manifesting that to all of us, sending that energy to all y'all watching live, that we can one day, sooner rather than later, know what that feels like. Anyway, as we go through the rest of the episode, and before we wrap up, we will do a ranking. We're going to do a character ranking before we call it a night. But as we see here, the seeds, Timothy, is this a result of they're so used to being at home? She had, well, how do you know she had 12,000? Anyway, does it say that? Maybe it said that. I may miss. Anyway, thank you for the insight there. The leaving the seeds in the blender overnight, to me, obviously neglect on Timothy's part, But I think that might speak to, I would imagine that he's probably used to a maid, probably used to a someone personal person, cleaner, personal cleaner doing that for them. So he's just like so used to that, and so he just left it out there. But the neglect that known as that's just, and honestly, I thought it was gonna be Saxon that did what we're seeing on the screen now. But again, it goes back to the pressure of his brother, the lessons that his brother tried to put on him, like drinking, you know, um, protein and shakes and all that stuff. So, but also if I'm Lachlan, and this is just me being a neat freak, I'm not drinking no blender with stuff from the night before. I'm washing that out. But I think the idea was for him being like, oh, he's still 18, like, oh, let me see what it's like to, even though we saw him consume alcohol in this season, but I think he was just like, oh, let me just mix it with alcohol leftovers. But still a very dumb decision either way on all accounts. But more so on Timothy, obviously, leaving that there for anyone to consume. It was just pretty dumb. But it's like, you got to at least, even if you want to like have a little bit of the alcohol, like at least rent. I don't know. I thought that was just kind of, and it was set out overnight. It's like, I don't know. And plus, apparently, it has a stench to it. Yeah, obviously, I'm thinking too literal about it. Anyway, speaking of literal, this man's literal heart stopped when he saw Jim. And shout out to Scott Glenn, for my Daredevil Netflix fans out there. He came at him. I guess my thing is, Jim was a POS, right? Because he's speaking to him about his father. And I even said it in the watch party, I'm like, oh, he's talking about himself. Because I was always on the fence about if he was going to be revealed to be his father, because I feel like he would have told him that when he had the gun in his face. But obviously that was the case. So shout out to y'all that called this weeks ago that he was going to be his dad. Shout out to y'all. But I think he was talking about himself, like, oh, I guess I'm trying to figure out, Jim was a piece of shit because he knew what he was doing. He was antagonizing him. He talked about his mom, called her a drunk and a slut, and said that your dad, and this is where I'm like kind of torn, because I think he was talking about himself. He was like, your dad was not a good man, and obviously he is his dad. Or was he taking a dig and again playing to the idea like, yeah, your dad, who's dead, was a terrible man. So I guess, yeah, I'm trying to see if there was any goodness. I don't know, goodness is the word. If it was any of like him speaking, the subtext or the subliminally, like trying to tell him, I'm your dad, I'm a piece of shit. But then, yeah, why would he call his mom a yeah, I'm gonna lean towards, I think he was being, mean and spiteful for pushing him in a chair, which he had every right to push back on him. I mean, the man he just came out of a hospital from a stroke or whatever. So that was his clapback. But I guess the idea was he was going to keep that secret. He told Shatala about it, but he didn't tell him. Yeah, I guess he is a piece of work, right? Is that how y'all feel about it? That he wasn't being, like there was what's the word I'm looking for? Ill intent to this. Like he was just being like petty. And he, they say, barked up the wrong tree. I think that's how I'm going to take it. And I think there might be even more to say about like father, like son, where we see Rick has this like almost not defect, but has like this instinctual nature to allow the bad to take over the good, and to allow the bad and the pettiness and the anger and the trauma to overcome logic. because anyone in their logical minds just being like, I'm happy. I got my closure. Even before he started talking his, stuff to him, you walk away from the situation because, push him in the chair. You don't know what could have went, it could completely went left, which it did. But anyway, what I'm getting at is like father, like son. I think instinctually for Jim, going back to his old days when he was, doing what he needed to do to get what he got in life, he pushed the bear. He poked the bear, as they say. Bar for bar, lick for lick. You push me, I'll push you harder. What they say, Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. Now he's like, if they go low, I'm going even lower. I'm going to the roots. I'm going to hell. I think Shannon Sharp said that, go low, you go to hell, to the lowest low. So I think that's a little bit of father and son moment of like allowing the anger and the spitefulness to take control. And unfortunately, that anger, that hatefulness, pettiness, whatever you want to call it, got the best of both men. And Chelsea, I mean, my man's stressing out. My man, can we talk about Walton? What can't he do? He's having a moment. Rightfully so. I mean, I've been following this man since Justified. So great in that. And I never really got into Sons of Anarchy, but I believe he was in that show. He's always been it's funny they had Sam Rockwell. I think of Sam Rockwell in this light where they're like great actors that just they're so great, but they never, and not that I don't know if some actors don't want to be the biggest star and everything, but I've always felt like he's been underappreciated. But Walton was great in this season. Really, really great. And I mean, look at the face. I mean, the scene alone with him talking to Frank, the response I think we all had of this like dumbfounded. But yeah, he's having a moment right now with I think it's called Righteous Gemstones, which is also on HBO. I heard it's great. I mean, it has to be, 5 seasons, the way they be cutting shows nowadays. So I know he's got that on TV right now. Obviously the White Lotus, and then earlier this year, Invincible as Cecil. So I don't know the man from a can of paint, but from everything I've seen from Walton, from interviews, especially with the show, and just like I said, I've been following him for, I don't know, over a decade now. He seems like a good dude. I don't know, but he seems like a Fallout. Yeah, Fallout. He was great as the goblin or whatever they're called. But he seems like a good dude. So I'm not that I'm getting any of his money, but I like when good people can win. So I do like that. Yeah, Jose, the man's house. Oh, I'm not a big architectural appreciator, but his house was gorgeous. Anyway, I like the scene. I like Rick. I don't like the stuff that Rick did. I like what the character represents. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of stuff going on with Rick, and I think you had the perfect actor that can play with all those emotions. And I think to have someone like Aimee across from him, it's a really good duo. I think this is the most tragic couple of the season, of the series, is Chelsea and Rick. I think when people walk away from this season, as I'll talk about further in my proper breakdown tomorrow, but I think when you look at it, they're probably the most tragic couple. Putting the death aside, that we'll talk about, but I think really interesting couple. Probably one of the most dynamic couples of the series. Not necessarily saying the best couple, but I think they had the most kind of arc, I would say. They weren't too much of one thing or too less of another thing. I think they offer something that we can all remember from this season. But speaking of remembering, I think this is the first time in the series that we got a fake out death, right? And I'll get to the Lachlan scene here in a second, but I'm just kind of going through so we can end off with the rankings of the characters. But Belinda, I thought she was going to die, but she says goodbye to her son to do his meditation session. Rick confronts the meditator, the teacher, and she's like, just wait 1 minute, give me a second, let me, take care of my client. And I think for the first time of the show, we have a death that didn't happen. And that's Lachlan. He's literally looking at death in the face of death and seeing his family as he's slowly fading away. And I like the callback to, again, I go back to the opening credits when you see someone in the water, his name's on the screen, and there's a person in the water. I think scientifically, I think he died. I do think he died for however many seconds or minutes it was. And I don't know, I'm not a Buddhist, but I don't know if this is like a life for a life, but I almost felt like the way the scene was cut, it was almost like when Chelsea died, the universe balances itself out, take one, give one type of situation. But he died, right? He sees the four monks. It goes back to the monk telling Timothy when their belief is when you die, life's a big pool of water and we're just a speck of water. And when we go off in life, we go off, but then when we come back, we go back into the pool from where we began. So they play into that whole thing, and to me, he died. And jumping ahead here, but I feel like when Chelsea died, Lachlan died, but then the universe took Guy Talk shot Rick, and I almost feel like, and again, this is just me speaking, it's almost like the universe was like, took a life, we can give one back. Again, I'm just talking out of my neck. I don't know if there's any, a religious thing to back that up, but that's how I kind of felt how the scene was cut. And the only reason I say this is because I don't really know Final Destination. Yeah, kind of, in a way. Take a life, give a life. Like being reborn, what have you. Sometimes when people see water, they associate that with being, baptized and what have you. But I say all that to say I don't know what was the reason to not kill him, to not, kill off the character, Lachlan. And I almost want to go to that scene. I almost feel like that last scene was a dream. And I wonder, someone way smarter than me is going to make a video in 2 months and be like, the ending of the White Lotus, the Ratliff family they all actually died. And it's all, we can see them on the boat. It's actually made up or it's all a dream. And there might be evidence for that, thinking about them on the water, they're returning home, and the whole idea of when you die, you go back to the water. And we don't see them back home, and we don't see the results of the trial and all that. So I don't know. I don't know. Interpretation. Maybe I'm making something more than what it is was not there, but I don't know. Maybe there's someone that can prove that it was Timothy. Imagine them going back home, but everyone did die potentially. Anywho, as we get towards the end, Saxon dies, sees the monks. Timothy finds him. He feels obviously responsible for the death of his son. The women take the photo with the Hollingers. Obviously, Belinda says her goodbye. Again, the cycle. This is almost, I can't remember season 1. I don't know if Tanya formally said goodbye to her or if it was just implied like she's just moving on with Greg. But either way, it's still kind of not repetitive, but it's paralleling to season 1 where she's the Tanya in the situation, Belinda being Tanya, where that whole Punchai open up a shop thing is still kind of weird to me, that he was like, oh, after sleeping together, let's spend our life together. Kind of weird behavior, but she's the Belinda is the Tanya situation where now she has the distraction, rather in Tanya's position, it was the distraction of lust and having a man and, finding the love of her life as she thought. In this case, it being Belinda, getting her money, getting the dream that she wanted to be fulfilled, but in doing so, just kind of like leaving him behind, which again, I almost don't want to compare the two. I'm more so comparing Belinda and Tanya more so than I am comparing Belinda to Punchai in the situation because they just met and there's not much like I don't feel I don't know the weight of him being like let down. It's like, dude, first off, this was supposed to be like a professional situation of him training her, and then it's like you slept with her, and she's like, I don't know, I don't really feel maybe there's more on the cutting room floor, but I didn't feel the same heartbreak from him as I did for Belinda in season one. And even in season one, as I said earlier, like I never really felt the heartbreak from Belinda because it's like, what do you expect this woman to just give you all your dreams? Anywho, I get the sentiment of it all though. It's like building people up in your head and they let you down. But either way, I feel like the very similar to Piper, as I mentioned earlier, like Peng Shai was only a character in service of Belinda's um life getting better for her. She has, quote unquote side piece boyfriend situation. She now has the money, so life's kind of turning up good for her. So, anywho, not everyone gets a complete arc, but as we wrap up, man, we see, and I think he shot him 3 times. Rick here. We've been poking fun of Guy Talk all season long about being a bad security guard. I think close, if not maybe number one, is the Hollinger's bodyguards. 2 episodes ago, they allowed Rick and Frank to come into their house without checking them, right? Because Rick had a gun on him. They didn't check him. They obviously allowed this to happen. Not being around the person who's supposed to be bodyguarding. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that they beat Gaitak in the bad security guards, bodyguards, however you want to call them. Pretty bad. Anywho, I think he shoots his dad 3 times, which I think goes back to the bad thing comes in threes. He kills the love he didn't have, and the end result is a shootout that breaks down with the bodyguards. He pops them, kills them, but unfortunately, as we know, one of the bullets, unfortunately, got to and I can't leave this out, even though we talked about it, but just to kind of show it, Shatala tells him that he's his dad. She told him, and I guess again he wanted to keep that a secret. He didn't want to tell his son. So Luke, I am your father moment happens there. He's kind of just like dumbfounded. Like, I mean, that's a lot to process at that moment. Obviously, you got guns being shot at you, bullets being flown by, just literally murdered somebody. It's a lot to process. So, Guy Tot, gun, running towards situation. Unfortunately, like I said, whether it was the let me see if I can get a better shot of this. Whether it was the being held at gunpoint. I mean, I don't blame that entirely on Rick, but if Rick would have been a more present partner with Chelsea at the beginning, maybe she wouldn't have ever been at the store when they got robbed. So I blame him a little bit for that. Obviously, I blame him for the snake being bitten by a snake. And then this is obviously as well. Like if he didn't shoot Jim, take the gun, she would have never been shot and died. And I think the show, obviously we can say that now, but the show has really been leading up to that she was gonna probably get the short end of the stick and lose the battle for Rick's joy. She literally said it. I don't know what episode it was. I think it was episode 2, that I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get your joy back, even if it means me dying. And here it is. She died. She dead. She wasn't even, she wasn't. I mean, we didn't see what happened, but I mean, maybe she did take cover and she still got popped in the chest. But and I don't know if I don't know if it's supposed to be like she was literally shot in the heart and it kind of literally her heart that she gave to Rick. He shot her in the heart, which obviously killed her. But anyway, it was an emotional moment. Again, if you go back and watch the replay on the watch party, I wasn't like tearing up like it was someone I personally knew, but it was an emotional moment. I think it earned the emotions. It led up to that point. I think compared to, as we talked for the last almost 2 hours, compared to some of the other plots, this felt a little bit more earned in a way. Oh, hold on. I went back. I want to just point this out. I talked about the bad things happen in threes. He shot Jim, from what I can see here. He shot Jim in the chest twice, and then she got shot. So that's like the third shot, right? 1, 2, 3. If he did, like I said, if the screenshot is correct, I think he only got shot twice. I'll have to go back in the scene to see if it was maybe more shots. But again, boom, boom, boom. And also, too, I thought Fabian was going to get shot. I thought he was the one in the water, but I'm pretty sure that one of the bodyguards, one of the Hollinger bodyguards, was the body that we end up seeing in the water. I don't know which one. I think it was the one, because one had the one with the hair, because one of them was bald. So that was the guy. Oh, that was the dead body that Zion saw, was the bodyguard with the hair, one of Jim's bodyguards. So there's that. So we lost 2 of our characters, 3. Well, 2 main characters, because Chelsea and Rick are main characters, supporting character and Jim, and the bodyguard. So we lost 5 people. And going back to my whole philosophical universe takes a life, gives a life, take a life, give a life. Maybe, again, if we're doing, 5 people died, and then Lachlan got his life because of those deaths. I don't know. But it's a good moment, though. Like I said, very, very emotional moment. Very emotional. And then the guy talk shooting Rick. Again, maybe if it was from, I don't know, because that would seem kind of crazy if Mook was like Shatala. I mean, like, shoot him. I almost felt like Mook could have been there as a bystander. She, maybe gets shot in the leg. Guy Talk sees that. He blames it on Rick, or maybe even Mook dies. Either way, what I'm getting at is the motivation of it all, of Guy Talk shooting, and it being from Shatala. Like, they only had one scene together in the season when they were talking in the middle of the corridor. She was like, "Oh, maybe you could be my bodyguard." I don't know. Maybe I feel like it should have came from someone else. And this speaks to a larger discussion that I'll talk about further in a review tomorrow, hopefully. And feeling unsatisfied with Guy Talk. Like, I was just hoping that it was more to the story of just him being someone that's very much, a good person, does the right thing, doesn't support violence, but ultimately, has to display violence at the, I don't want to say, he pulled the trigger, but, the pressure of like, shoot, do it. And we all know that he's a good shot based on the training that we saw a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that feels complete. And then also to see him, as Shatala's bodyguard at the end, I would have thought that maybe, put the gun away and become a monk or something. But presumably you're thinking that, he's the bodyguard now. He's faced that fear. Life won, or as Mook said, that, it's the nature of life is you got to fight. So, he wins. He goes that route. I assume him and Mook are going to be dating now. He's a bodyguard. So let's see. But let me know how y'all feel about that. About the Guy Talk's conclusion. But speaking of conclusion, like I said, this was to me, this is the most tragic death of any season. Armand's was an accident. Tanya was kind of, I don't say goofy, but it was a little, silly for her not to take the stairs or the ladder down to the boat. But she fell and hit her head and died and drowned. And look, Jennifer Coolidge, hilarious, deservingly so, won an Emmy for her role as Tanya. But I was never like emotionally invested in Tanya like that, if I'm being honest. But yeah, this death to me is definitely the most tragic of any of the seasons. So yeah. And again, it's like this is the life he chose, the decision that he made ended up costing his life and, the love of his life. But let me see. We talked about Lachlan at this point being kind of resurrected, a life for a life for a life. We wrap up. They're on the boat again. Am I crazy? Am I crazy to think that this is a dream? I don't know. The blue shirt symbolizing water, them on a boat and water, them essentially almost doing the same thing. Like, I mean, this frame here, let me take this down for a second, but like, I'll have to go back and watch episode 1 just to see if there's any juice to this. I see, yeah, it's not a dream. Or not, just stick with me for here. I know I gotta look at the shot again, but I think that they're all almost wearing similar clothes to what we first saw them, or at least the headphone. Like it's almost a similar framing than when we first met them. And I mean, it can be purposeful, obviously, kind of beginning and end. It's not a dream. I'm just saying, just go with me for a little bit. If it could be a dream, they're on the water, going back to the monk. When you die, you go back to the water. They're on the water. We don't really know what happens with the trial, right? I'm just playing with y'all. Or am I? Coming out later this week. Why the ending? Ending explained. Yeah. Anyway, the only reason I'm playing up to this whole dream thing is I just don't feel like we've been building to this moment of him finally telling his family that they don't have money, or they're going back to a shitstorm back home. And I just don't feel like we're just assuming that they're going to go back home. They're going to go to trial or go get their house raided. They're going to go back and find all their stuff is gone. But it's just like, I mean, like, not every movie, not every story has a complete ending for every character. You got to, fill in the blank sometimes. But I don't know. I just feel like they were building to something of either the case was going to be resolved, or, we find out that one of the family members turned them in or fed the feds information. And then just the whole like, hey guys, we're going to go back home and it's going to be we're going to deal with it as a family. It's like, yeah, you say that now after you almost killed your son and almost killed your whole family. We're going to figure this out. Like, oh yeah, you didn't think about that yesterday when you were trying to murder all of them, kill all of them. I don't know. It just feels a little, I'm just trying to, obviously this is first reactions. I'll think about it after I rewatch it and do a full breakdown. But I mean, that's life sometimes too. You don't always have to figure it all out, get all the answers. But yeah, anyway, they're on the boat and I think it's a dream. Watch. When I do my full breakdown, I'm gonna come with the evidence. I'm gonna come with it and be like, look, guys, there's a someone on a boat that isn't supposed to be on a boat. No, I'm joking. But we see the friend group, they're on the boat. We see Chelsea or Chloe, and Greg. They found their third wheel. We see the guys partying, they assuming they turn in the money, and they're got money now. We see Frank praying. Like I said, guy talking, Mook hug, and he's now the security guard of Tatala. We see the body bags. Obviously, Rick and Chelsea heading back to the States, and we see them saying goodbye. And as they say goodbye, we say goodbye to season 3 of the White Lotus. I can't remember who asked me this. I think it was Abundance. Someone asked me this earlier. How would I rank the seasons? And maybe this can be further explored in another video. But right now, from worst and not worse, I think that's because I liked all the seasons, but I like some of them more than others. So for me, my least favorite season is season 1. Some of y'all might be like, what the season 1? That's my favorite. Listen to me. I like all the seasons for what they were given. Season 1 obviously has the appeal because it's like the first time introduced into the story, the format of the murder mystery and figuring out all these people's dirt and laundry and all that stuff that comes with season 1 has that, that appeal to it. And I haven't revisited season 1 in a while, but from what I can recollect and what I can remember, and everyone's complaining about how this season's so slow. I challenge y'all to rewatch season 1. That and the build-up was there, but that really took its time to get going. And if also too, just from entertainment level, I just feel like season 1 is the least entertaining season. And not that it holds a lot of weight for me, but I like the cast that they put together. It's probably not from an acting perspective because I love Armand, obviously the Tayme stuff and Belinda stuff, Greg, all this, it has its moments, but it's probably my least favorite cast, like on a personal level, out of the 3. So that's my least favorite. Number 2 is this season 3. To piggyback off of what I said, I enjoy this cast way more than I enjoy season 1. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Walton, great actor. Leftovers, one of my favorite shows of all time. That's when I was first introduced to Carrie Coon. I've been a fan ever since. And Aimee, like I said, I watched Sex Education. So, like, just that alone, like, I take those 3 actors over any of the actors from season 1. And not like acting, I think they were better actors. I think they are better actors, but I'm just talking about just from an enjoyment level. Like, I enjoy their performances, their stories more than I enjoyed most of the characters in season 1. So season 3 is my number 2. And then season 2, I think season 2 is the best season, like without shadow of a doubt. I just talked about the cast. I'm a huge Aubrey Plaza fan. I really like Theo James. What's her name? Megan McFay, I think that's her name. I can't think of the character that played the Theo's wife. That was my first time being introduced to her. Standout character that season. Harper, that whole Will Sharp, I think is his name. Like, that was so interesting. The 3 generations of the dads and she, like, the drama was good. The Tanya death is still kind of goofy to me. And like how that all played out. But it was some good memes. It was a very memeable season. I think the gays are trying to kill me. Like, there's a lot of good memes that came from that season. I think of Portia when she's in the car with, I think, what was his name, Jack. He's like, when she's confronting him about sleeping with his uncle, Quentin. Oh, that's your uncle? Oh, so you, like, so many great lines from the season. So, long story short, season 2 is my favorite. So, again, from worst or least favorite to favorite, 1, 3, 2. That's how I rank it for me personally. I wanted to do. It's getting late. It's almost 2.5 hours. It's 12:05 where I'm at. I'm not tired or anything. I'm putting this on y'all. I put together, and I can do this separately, maybe later in the week. I made this ranking list. Do we do the ranking now? Where I'm like 80% good. Like, I'm a little bit tired. It's a little bit long day, and I still got to make my video, like the full breakdown. Let's do it. No, I'm gonna because it's Monday too. I know a lot of y'all I gotta go to work too, and I gotta make this video for y'all. That'll take you for like I said, because as y'all can see, and if this is your first time here, I like to talk a lot, as you can see. So we would probably be here another 2.5 hours if I did a character by character breakdown. I don't know if we do a live or we do a separate pre edited and all that stuff video, but maybe we save that for later in the week. Anyway, it would be just ranking the characters from was a great, good, mid to not, or when I say didn't matter. And it wouldn't be for all the characters, it would be just for this season specifically. Yeah, I'm gonna call it a night because I would want to have that energy, that excitement, and have that full depth conversation about the ins and outs of why someone's at a top tier and someone's at a lower tier. So we'll save that for later. Anywho, I am going to wrap this up here soon, but I will say I'm going to rewatch the episode tomorrow morning. I'm going to take down some notes, kind of put stuff together, maybe stuff I didn't really like on the first viewing, maybe I'll like on a second viewing. And I'm going to put together, just like my regular breakdown, like I've been doing for the last 10 weeks, 8 weeks. And then depending on timing, it might be out tomorrow, late afternoon, late evening, or maybe first thing on Tuesday morning. We'll see how time works out. But either way, keep an eye out for my full breakdown. Keep an eye out for, there's a sponsorship on tomorrow, if it is tomorrow, breakdown. So if you want to support the channel, keep an eye out for my sponsorship for whenever that video comes out, hopefully tomorrow. But before we call it a night, we had over about 800 viewers during the watch party, and we had close to about 1,200 viewers on the live after show. I am one of bazillions of content creators that's not just on YouTube, but TikTok, Instagram, and of course, you all have your personal lives. I say all that to say that I really appreciate you all spending the last 2.5 hours, not including the watch party, almost 3.5, almost 4 hours with me tonight. It means the world. Also appreciate y'all that's been watching the videos like they have, just from as a creator, it means a lot to me that you guys were supporting the content, because it's not easy to watch an hour episode, do the videos, edit the videos, it takes a while. So I appreciate y'all showing support for this show. I've been covering this since season 1, and just seeing the progression from what coverage was, how the styles of the videos were from season 1 to season 2 to season 3. It means the world. So I really appreciate y'all showing the support. We had some love via the super chats. Everyone that gave a super chat, everyone that gave a like, that shared, a comment. I know I wasn't able to, when I get in my mode of breaking down, I'm not able to, interact with you all as much as I would want to, but I hope you guys still appreciated the commentary. But again, I just want to make sure y'all know I appreciate y'all. And it was a fun journey. We wrapped up Severance a couple weeks ago. We wrapped up Invincible a couple weeks ago. We're wrapping this show up now. We'll be back hopefully next week with Last of Us and other shows and movies to come. So thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. We're hopefully getting closer and closer to that, 80,000, 90 and 100 and onward and on and on and on. And hopefully I can be like Belinda. No, I'm joking. But no, the love and support you guys show means more to me than monetary stuff. So I really appreciate y'all. So thank y'all. Before you head out, hit the thumbs up. Closing already? ? Yeah, we've been on for almost 2.5 hours, my guy. So appreciate you stopping by. I'm gonna have the replay up, so you can check out the replay, and I'll have a proper breakdown tomorrow, hopefully. But how long have I been going on? Let me get to the ending. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. Full review coming soon. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all hopefully tomorrow for my full breakdown, more concise breakdown. Peace out, y'all.